Hello everyone, am I audible? Okay, let other students also join. Okay, let's wait for 1 minute. Let students join. Okay, and then we will continue. Okay, so hello everyone. Okay, today we are basically having this session. Okay, just to quickly revise some of the important topics, mainly from biology, as you will be having your science paper of term 2 examination, right? Yes. So let's first see the overall pattern of science paper, and then we will also see some of the important topics from science, mainly biology, okay, for today's session, and what all important things you can do in these 2-3 days, right, to score well in your examinations, right? Yes, hello everyone. So let's start. Everyone can see the screen, right? Yes, Arush, Gandhar. Am I audible clearly? Can you see the screen? Please tell me in the chat box. Okay. Okay. So your science paper will be of total of 40 marks, right? And you will get 2 hours to solve this paper. Now the entire paper, okay, it will have all the 3 subjects of science, that is physics, chemistry and biology, right? So the paper will consist of 3 sections, A, B and C. These 3 sections, okay, will have questions as you can see on the screen. Section A will have 7 questions. So question number 1 to question number 7, each 2 marks question, right? Next, in section B, you will have a total of 6 questions and each question will carry 3 marks. In section C, you will have 2 questions and these will be case-based questions. Okay, so you will be given some paragraph, some information, or maybe some diagram. You have to analyze and then you have to find out the answers, right? So these two case-based questions carry 4 marks each. Okay, now remember one very important point to note here is in the 4 marks question, okay, section C, each case study, each case-based question will have 3 sub questions. Okay, so it will be like this. Okay, like if you have suppose a particular question number, let's say question number 14 and 15, the last 2 questions will be from section C. So question number 14, okay, some data will be given and you will have 3 sub questions, A, B and C, and the C question will have options. Okay, it will have options. Always remember the first 2 questions carry 1 mark each and the C question have 2 marks. Okay, and you will have an option for it, right? Yes, and all questions in general are compulsory. However, an internal option will be provided for few questions, right? Yes, and especially in section C, always remember the A and B part are compulsory and the C part has the option. C part is for 2 marks, right? And this last question of section C, the C part of the question will have an option. Okay, so while attempting the question, please make sure you are writing answers of all the questions properly. Write the question numbers properly. Now, these are some of the tips, okay, based on how you are writing the paper, right? So basically, make sure you manage your time properly, right? During your examination, you have enough time. You have 2 hours to write 40 marks paper. So divide all the time properly as per the sections, right? Yes. Also, after the paper, make sure you have time. Then please go through the paper, read your answers once again properly, right? Yes. Write your answers in points. All the sections should be separately written, right? Don't mix questions from different sections. Okay, section A, section B, section C should start on a new page, on a fresh page. Okay, and then continue all the questions one below another in a specific section. Okay, write in points. Wherever diagrams are necessary, especially in case of biology, right? Yes, when you are explaining something for 3 marks, right? Make sure you include the diagram also if there is a relevant diagram for it. For example, if you are explaining binary fission, say binary fission in amoeba, or if suppose you are explaining the trophic levels, right? Yes, the ecological pyramid from environment chapter, then make sure you also draw the required diagram, the appropriate diagrams, okay, so that you will not lose any marks in such questions. Okay, so write point wise, manage your time properly. All the sections should start on a fresh page. Don't mix 2 different sections. Also, your handwriting and your overall paper presentation should be neat and clean, right? Your paper should be clean. If you make any error, if any spelling mistake, just strike it once and move forward. Don't scribble in your paper, right? Yes. So you should have a very neat paper presentation. Whenever you draw diagrams, make sure you label the diagrams properly. At least the important parts of the diagram should be labeled. Also, write the name of the diagram. Okay, that is also important. For example, if you are drawing the diagram of birding in hydra, okay, then you have to label, okay, the parent body, bird, right? Then how it's detached, and also write that this is birding in hydra. Okay, this labeling of the diagram is also equally important, right? So these were some general tips for your science paper. Okay, now let's quickly revise and go through some important topics from biology section. Okay, so for your term 2 examination, you mainly have 3 chapters, right? You have 3 chapters from biology section. Okay, you have chemistry and physics also. We will today discuss mainly about the biology part. Okay, so you have 3 chapters for term 2 examination. How do organisms reproduce? Heredity and our environment. All three chapters are very, very important. Okay, right? So read the textbook carefully. Practice the diagrams also, right? You have enough time to practice the diagrams, okay? Especially binary fission in amoeba, budding in hydra, right? In reproductive systems, the female reproductive system is most often asked to draw, right? Also, the structure of bisexual flower, the longitudinal section of flower, right? Yes. Next, to represent fertilization in plants, right? These are some common diagrams. Also, in heredity chapter, right? Make sure you practice all the different types of crosses, right? Monohybrid, dihybrid crosses, right? The ratios should be found out carefully. Also, in chapters like heredity, okay, if you are asked some question to find out some ratio or to find out percentage of a particular offspring, pay attention to the question properly. What is actually asked in the question? Because many a times you know how to solve, right? But you basically don't read the question properly and then you end up making some mistakes, right? Yes. So read the question properly from your question paper and then solve it appropriately. Okay. Okay. Now let's see some of the important topics, okay, which everyone must revise. Okay. So first, in chapter how do organisms reproduce, okay, you all have to go through all the important modes of reproduction. So there are two types of reproduction: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction, right? Yes. So all the different methods of asexual reproduction, that is binary fission. See, what are the examples of binary fission? Tell me in the chat box. Which organisms reproduce by binary fission? Tell me in the chat box. Yes. Yes. Which organisms reproduce by binary fission? Tell me in the chat box. Very good. Amoeba and Leishmania. सही है, ये आपको टेक्स्ट बुक में दिए. There are many more examples like Paramecium, Euglena, right? Yes. But remember these two very important examples which are given in your textbook also, right? Amoeba and Leishmania. Yes. Okay. So binary fission. Okay. Let's quickly list out all the important methods here. Budding, right? Now, unicellular organism which undergoes budding is yeast, that which is a fungus, right? And multicellular organism which undergoes budding is hydra, right? Practice the diagrams. Okay. Next, important method, fragmentation. Okay. So fragmentation is asexual reproduction method, especially in many of the lower plants, okay, like algae. We have Spirogyra, right? When Spirogyra achieves a considerable length, right? When it's too long, this filament will split into tiny pieces, and each piece, each fragment will grow into a mature individual, right? That is why it is called fragmentation. So fragmentation का example क्या आएगा? Spirogyra, right? Next, spore formation. Right? Spore formation in case of mainly various fungi like the bread mold, right? In case of bread mold, that is rhizopus. Spores are produced in a specialized sac-like structure called sporangium. These spores are released, right? And wherever Favorable conditions are available like warm, moist conditions. These spores will germinate to again give rise to the fungal filaments, which are nothing but the hyphae, which form a network called mycelium, right? This is nothing but the mold, which we see on the bread, right? So spore formation is the mode of reproduction in fungi like bread mold, that is rhizopus, right? What are the other methods which you all have studied? Yes, binary fission, budding, fragmentation, spore formation. You all have also studied about multiple fission, right? Fission में binary fission भी आएगा और multiple fission भी आएगा. We have multiple fission, right? As in case of plasmodium, which is the malarial parasite, right? Malaria is caused by a protozoa called plasmodium, and this plasmodium reproduces by forming multiple cells at a time. देखो बाइनरी फिजन में सिर्फ 2 ही डॉटर सेल्स बनते हैं, सही है. मल्टीपल फिजन में क्या होगा? Multiple daughter cells are produced simultaneously, and hence it's the example of multiple fission, plasmodium, right? Next, which we have studied is vegetative propagation, right? Vegetative propagation. So this is simply asexual reproduction in plants, right? So when root, stem, leaves help in reproduction, then it will be known as vegetative propagation, right everyone? Yes, absolutely correct. Yes. So यहाँ पे एक बहुत ही common question है, what are the advantages of vegetative propagation or what are the disadvantages or limitations of vegetative propagation? As we can see here, vegetative propagation क्या है? Asexual mode of reproduction in plants, right? Yes. So here the advantage will be that the parental characters are maintained. Okay, as there is no like here 2 individuals are not involved, here fertilization is not involved, right? Here there is no recombination. The parental organism, the parent plant directly gives rise to new plants through their root, stem or leaves, and hence the genetic material will be same as the parental plant. So here the parental characters are maintained. Second important advantage of vegetative propagation is there are some plants which do not produce seeds, right? Yes, so ऐसे plants vegetatively propagate नहीं कर पाएंगे, right? So sorry, ऐसे plants sexually reproduce नहीं करते अगर seeds ही नहीं है. Yes, इसका मतलब fertilization नहीं हुआ है, right? Yes, so plants which fail to produce seeds, they can also be propagated by vegetative propagation, because here in vegetative propagation fertilization is not involved, right? So this is very important method of plant propagation, right? Yes, and it is a faster, rapid mode of reproduction. Okay, now there are also certain limitations, certain disadvantages of vegetative propagation. That is, first of all, there will be no variations. As only one plant is involved, there will be no variations. Second important limitation is that it is very faster mode of reproduction, and hence it sometimes leads to overcrowding. There is too much growth of the plants, right everyone? Then we have also studied regeneration, right? We have studied what is regeneration. Okay, so remember regeneration in planaria. If planaria is accidentally cut into pieces, let's say 2 or 3 pieces, each piece can regenerate the lost part and you will have new individuals, right? Yes. Now remember, regeneration is not a main mode of reproduction. It is just like a survival benefit, right? Iska example kya hai? Planaria, right? So this is all about the asexual reproduction methods. Okay, the main reproductive methods. Then some extra points like tissue culture bhi aapne padha hai, right? Yes. Tissue culture method wherein in vitro, that is in laboratory, plant parts are used to regrow new plants, and using this method, using tissue culture, thousands of plants can be propagated simultaneously, right? So this is an advantage of tissue culture. Okay, it's an artificial technique, right? Okay. Next, you all have studied about sexual reproduction, right? Now, the most important event which is involved in sexual reproduction is fertilization. This is the distinguishing point between asexual and sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, fertilization is involved, right? And in asexual, the fusion of gametes is not involved, right? So this is very important here. So here basically gamete formation occurs, and during gamete formation, meiosis type of cell division will occur, right? The parent is diploid. It has two sets of chromosomes. Yes or no? Chromosomes are paired. These parental bodies will produce gametes, and gametes are haploid. So what type of cell division occurs here? Meiosis, right? Meiosis is the type of cell division which occurs during gamete formation. Always remember this, right? Then here you all have studied sexual reproduction in plants, and you all have studied human reproduction, right? How sexual reproduction occurs in humans. Okay, so let's quickly revise all the important points here. So first, let's discuss about the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So in higher plants, that is mainly flowering plants, when flower is directly involved in reproduction, the reproduction will be sexual, right? When the root, stem and leaves are involved, it is asexual reproduction, that is vegetative propagation. But when flowers are involved, it will be sexual reproduction. So a typical flower, that is a bisexual flower, right? Typical flower is a complete flower, bisexual flower, which has both the reproductive whorls, right? Now, total this will have 4 whorls. Outermost whorl is calyx. Then we have corolla, androecium. सही है, जिसका बेसिक यूनिट क्या है? Stamen. Stamens will have the anthers, right? Anther के अंदर बनेंगे pollen grains, right? So calyx, corolla, androecium, and the innermost whorl is gynoecium. Right, the basic unit of gynoecium is pistil or carpel, right? It has 3 parts: stigma, style, and ovary. Inside the ovary, ovules are present, right? After the fertilization event, ovule gets converted into seed and ovary converts into fruit, right? Seed is the main product of sexual reproduction, okay? जिससे हमें नया plant मिलता है, right? Seed germinates when it is completely ready, and when favorable conditions are present, seed will germinate and give rise to the new generation, new plants, right? So basically in this topic, you have to know the overall structure of flower, right? Now bisexual flowers are present in case of plants like China rose, hibiscus, right? You also have some plants which bear unisexual flowers. Okay, unisexual flowers का क्या मतलब है? Here you will have a separate male and separate female flower, right? So the flower will either have stamens or pistil, right? Yes, so you have separate male and female flowers. इसके examples क्या है? Yes, you have papaya, right? Cucumber, yes or no? Watermelon, सही है? यहाँ पे क्या होते हैं? Unisexual flowers. Wait, I'll share the screen again. Everyone can see the screen, right? Yes, Pratham, Gandhar, आरुष, दिख रही है ना अभी सबको स्क्रीन? Yes, please tell me in the chat box. Okay. Yes. Okay, now let's continue. Okay. Okay, let's continue now. So we have seen here flowers can be bisexual or unisexual. Okay. Bisexual flowers will have both androecium and gynoecium, that is male and female reproductive whorls. And unisexual flowers, we have separate flowers. Okay. Separate male and separate female flower. That means a flower will bear either androecium or gynoecium. Okay. Unisexual flowers. Now, remember here regarding the fertilization event, right? So pollen grains are produced inside the anther. Ovules are present inside the ovary of the gynoecium, right? Yes. Inside the ovule, you have the embryo sac, जिसके अंदर क्या होता है? Egg cell, which is the female gamete. Pollen grains carry the male gametes, right? So one very important point here is pollination. Okay, yes. So boards में question आपको अभी term 2 में आ सकता है, the different types of pollination, right? Self pollination and cross pollination, right? So pollen grains are transferred from anther to stigma. If of the same flower, then self pollination. If different flowers, then cross pollination, right? So after pollination event, after the pollen grain reaches the stigma of a flower, pollen tube forms if the pollen grain reaches the right species, same species, right? Compatible organism. Pollen tube grows towards the ovule in the ovary. Pollen tube carries the male gametes, right? Then the male gamete is transferred inside the ovule, okay, inside mainly the embryo sac where the egg is present, that is the female gamete. Male and female gametes fuse. Okay, so when the male gamete and the female gamete fuse, what is the product? Male gamete fuse with the egg cell. What is the product? Zygote. Now, we have already discussed that gametes are haploid. So, yeah, so when two haploid gametes fuse, you will end up producing diploid zygote. All the chromosomes will be in pairs in case of zygote. This process is nothing but fertilization. Right? This process is fertilization or syngamy. I mean, fuse with the egg to form the zygote. The second male gamete fuse with the two polar nuclei which are present in the embryo sac. Okay? And when these two polar nuclei fuse with the second male gamete, a triploid, that means 3N endosperm is formed. Okay, a nuclei is formed, जिसमें बार-बार cell division होगा, सही है, nuclear divisions होंगे, and then you will have a nutritive tissue that is endosperm. Okay, so the two main products which are produced are zygote and the endosperm. Both these are present inside the seed. When the seed develops, okay, when it matures, okay, so when the seed matures, okay, and when favorable conditions are present, the seed will germinate and give rise to new plant. So inside the seed, you have radicle, plumule, and cotyledons. Okay, these are the three main parts of the embryo which are covered by the seed coat. Okay, so your radicle gives rise to root, plumule gives rise to the shoot system, and cotyledons are mainly storing the food material, right? Yes. Okay. Next topic जो आपने important यहाँ पे पढ़ा है, that is reproduction in human beings. Okay. So here basically you should be thoroughly prepared with all the changes which occur at the puberty in both girls and boys. This is very common question. Okay. Yes. Next, you should be knowing all the important functions of different parts of the male and female reproductive systems. Okay. So now let's quickly go through the important functions of different parts of the male and female reproductive system. So in the male reproductive system, okay, the most important organ is basically where the gametes are produced. That is nothing but testes, right? So a pair of testes are present inside the scrotal sac, right? Yes. Now, testes are the gonads, okay? These are the male reproductive organs. They are mainly involved in two functions. Here, male gametes, that means sperm cells are produced. And second, here, hormones, basically male sex hormones, that is testosterone is produced. Okay, so अगर आपको function पूछा है, what is the function of testis? What you need to write? It produces the male gametes, that is sperm cells. And second, it produces hormones like testosterone. Okay, and this hormone is very important to develop the secondary sexual characteristics in males. Okay, then the next important part of the male reproductive system is the sperm duct or the vasa deferens, right? Yes. So this is basically a long tube which carries the sperms from the testis to the urethra in male. Okay, now in case of males, urethra is the common passage for both urine as well as the transport of the semen which contains the sperm cells, right? So it is known as urinogenital tract because it carries both urine as well as sperm cells. Okay. Next, यहाँ पे जो आपको important point पता होना चाहिए, that is the copulatory organ. Okay, so here penis will be the copulatory organ which will be involved in transfer of the male gametes into the female reproductive tract. Okay, so here the most important point will be the function of testes, sperm production and testosterone production. Okay, next, the female reproductive system. Okay, diagram of the reproductive systems are also equally important. Okay, practice especially the female reproductive system. Labelings of all the diagrams, very important. Okay, now let's quickly revise all the important functions of various parts of the female reproductive system. Okay, so here we have ovaries, right? A pair of ovaries, yes or no? Then pair of fallopian tube, that is oviduct. Third, a muscular sac-like structure called uterus, right? And next will be the vagina, right? So let's quickly discuss all the important functions here. So what is the function of ovaries? यहाँ पे भी दो functions है, सही है? Ovary basically is the gonad. It is mainly involved in production of the female gamete, that is the egg cell. Okay, so यहाँ पे first लिखते हैं organ, ovaries, right? Pair of ovaries, okay, basically, right? Next, here egg cells are produced. Second, here basically sex hormones, the female sex hormones like estrogen is produced. Okay, a screen is shared. Okay, I have shared the screen again. There was some connection problem. Okay, now you can see the screen, right? Yeah. Okay, so ovary is the site where female germ cell, that is the egg cell, is produced, and second, hormones like estrogen and progesterone are produced in the ovary. Is it clear? Right? ये दो functions बहुत ही important है. Okay? Yes. Next important part is the fallopian tube or the oviduct. Right? Oviduct. Okay, so here basically it's a passage which connects, or a tube which connects the ovary to the uterus. So basically the fallopian tube, okay, it has fimbriae, right? Projections which will pick up the egg released by ovary. The egg will be carried in the fallopian tube. If fertilization occurs, right? Yes, if there is sexual intercourse, then the sperm cells will enter the female reproductive tract. And if the male gametes reach the egg cell, then fertilization will occur, right? Yes, and you will get the zygote. And if fertilization does not occur, then the egg is basically removed from the female body, right? Yes. So here comes another important topic, that is the menstrual cycle, menstruation, right? First, let's see the roles of different parts here. Now, अगर fallopian tube का आपको function पूछा है, right? Now, apart from simply carrying the egg cell, the most important function of fallopian tube is that it is the site of fertilization, right? Yes, it is the place where fusion of male and female gametes occur. Okay, site of fertilization. Second, the third part basically is uterus. Okay, so it's a muscular pear-shaped structure. Okay, the innermost lining is endometrium. Uterus is the organ where the baby grows, right? Yes, the embryo and the fetus develops from the zygote. So, if fertilization occurs, the zygote from the fallopian tube will be carried towards the uterus, and then it will be attached to the inner linings of the uterus. Now, as here fertilization has occurred, now this zygote will give rise to embryo and then the fetus, the baby, yes or no? So, the uterus prepares every month for the pregnancy, and the inner linings of the uterus become thick, spongy, and is richly supplied with blood vessels, right, for nourishment. So that if fertilization occurs, then proper nourishment will be given to the embryo, right? So this is how uterus prepares. It becomes thick, it becomes spongy, the inner linings become thick, it is supplied with blood vessels, right? Now, what if fertilization does not occur? Right? What if fertilization does not occur? Then there is no need of this thick lining of the uterus, right? The egg is unfertilized, and hence these inner thick linings break down, they are shedded in the form of blood and mucus, and they are released out through the female body through vagina, right? And this is known as menstruation. It lasts for about 2 to 8 days. And now this is a cyclic change, right? This is a monthly cycle. Every month the uterus prepares. If fertilization does not occur, then the linings will break after a certain days, right? After certain days, the linings will break. So this entire cycle, okay, is about 28 days. This cycle is known as menstrual cycle. And the release of blood and mucus due to breakdown of the uterine inner layers is known as menstruation. Okay? Yes. So remember, अगर आपको इस पे question पूछा है, then make sure you mention that menstruation occurs if fertilization does not occur. अगर fertilization हुआ है, then the inner lining of the uterus are maintained because they are now required for the growth of the baby. Right, everyone? Yes. The next part of the female reproductive system is the vagina, right? It is also the birth canal because the child is born naturally through the vagina. It is also the passage for menstruation, that is release of blood and mucus out of the female body. And third, it is also the point through which the male gametes will enter inside the female reproductive tract, right? Yes. So, function of ovary, fallopian tube, uterus, vagina, everything is very important. Okay? Yes. Okay, next part of the chapter, important part of the chapter is basically the reproductive health, right? Yes, reproductive health. So here basically you should be able to answer properly about the various sexually transmitted diseases. Okay. Now the screen will be visible. Okay, there is some इंटरनेट इशू, ओके, जिसकी वजह से स्क्रीन शेयरिंग बंद हो रहा है, ठीक है. I have shared it now. Yeah. So you have to know about the sexually transmitted diseases. Okay, so there are certain bacterial, viral diseases, right? Bacterial diseases like syphilis, gonorrhea, yes or no? And viral diseases like AIDS, right? And warts, genital warts, yes or no? Herpes, right? Yes or no? These are transferred during the sexual intercourse, and that is why they are called sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, or sexually transmitted infections, that is STIs. Okay, right? Now one more point, okay, because whenever we check papers, we have seen this common mistake. Whenever you are writing the names of sexually transmitted diseases, okay, and when you mention AIDS, remember AIDS ही लिखना है, okay, या फिर आप पूरा लिख सकते हो HIV AIDS. Do not write only HIV, because HIV is the virus and not the name of disease. If you write only HIV, then this is not the name of disease, so you will not get marks for it. Okay, right? AIDS is the name of disease, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Okay, and HIV is the virus which cause AIDS. Okay, human immunodeficiency virus, right? तो virus का नाम मत लिखो disease में, write the name of disease, that is AIDS. Okay, yes. Okay, so this was about the reproductive health, right? Now, to avoid any unwanted pregnancy and also to prevent the spread of sexually transmitted diseases, there are certain methods, right? Yes, and especially to prevent any unwanted pregnancy, आपके textbook में आपको contraceptive methods दिए हुए हैं, right? Yes. So again, इस पे भी commonly question पूछा जाता है regarding the various contraceptive devices, right? So first is the mechanical barrier, right? Yes. So your examples will be like condoms, right? Yes or no? Here the male gamete will not reach the female reproductive tract, and hence fertilization is prevented, right? So first will be mechanical barrier method. Second will be the chemical method like hormonal pills, right? Yes or no? Contraceptive pills, which basically inhibit the release of egg. If egg is not released, so fertilization nahi hoga, and hence no pregnancy, right? Next, intrauterine contraceptive devices, that is IUD, right? Copper T, right? Yes, these are certain devices which are fitted inside the uterus of the female, and they basically again prevent the egg release. They will also reduce the motility of sperm cells. इसके वजह से क्या होता है? Ultimately fertilization is prevented, and hence no pregnancy, right? Yes. Last, surgical methods आपने पढ़े हैं, tubectomy and vasectomy. Tubectomy in case of females and vasectomy in case of males, right? Now surgical methods are more commonly used for permanent sterilization, okay, right? Yes. And mechanical barrier methods or IUD, okay, or the pill method, right? Yes, this will be used if the couple wishes to have children in near future, right? Yes. Okay, right. Out of all these methods, okay, there is one method which can prevent pregnancy as well as the sexually transmitted diseases, right? That will be the mechanical barrier, right, everyone? Mechanical barrier method, that is use of condoms, diaphragms, yes or no? This will also prevent the spread of sexually transmitted diseases. Yes. Other methods cannot prevent. Okay. Other methods will prevent pregnancy, but not STDs. Okay. Now one more small important topic, okay, जो बहुत ही important है, इसमें previous years में भी बहुत बार questions आए थे. That is placenta. Okay. Now, whenever fertilization occurs, now we know that zygote is produced. Now, this will implant in the uterine walls, and it will give rise to embryo and the fetus. The baby will develop. सही है? Now, for the nourishment of this baby, right, you should have some tissue which will communicate, which will be like a bridge between the fetus and the mother, right? So, this tissue is placenta. It has villi to increase the surface area. It has blood spaces towards the mother's circulatory system, right? Yes or no? Next, due to presence of villi on the embryonic side, the surface area is tremendously increased, right? This basically helps in efficient exchange of gases like O2 and CO2, right? Oxygen is provided to the fetus or the embryo. Waste which are produced like CO2 will be produced. This will be transferred to the mother's blood, right? Also nutrients like glucose, amino acids will be provided to the embryo from the mother's system, circulatory system, and the waste produced will be dumped in the mother's circulatory system, right? So for nourishment, for elimination of waste, for gaseous exchange, that is O2 and CO2, placenta is very, very important. Clear? Apart from this is also, placenta also releases certain hormones like progesterone, which maintains the thick lining of the uterus, right? So these are all the important points of how do organisms reproduce chapter, right? Now let's quickly go through the next chapter. इसमें क्या क्या important चीजें आपको note करनी है, that is heredity chapter, right? Now in heredity chapter, make sure you practice all the crosses properly, monohybrid crosses, dihybrid crosses, right? Yes, that is very important. Okay, तो यहाँ पे gamete formation ये सही से आना चाहिए, right? Then you should be able to tell all the ratios properly, right? तो यहाँ पे 3 ratios बहुत ही important है. Phenotypic ratio. Okay, what is phenotype? The physical expression of the character. This is what you observe, right? So phenotypic ratio of monohybrid cross, मतलब जब आप एक single gene consider करते हो, single character while making a cross, monohybrid cross का phenotypic ratio क्या होता है? Chat box में बताओ. Okay, then you also have the genotypic ratio. सबको phenotypic ratio बताना है chat box में. Genotypic ratio भी होता है. Now these ratios are of the F2 generation, right? The second generation. Okay, ratios are very important. What are the phenotypic ratios? 3:1 phenotypic, where 3 is the dominant trait and 1 is the recessive trait, right? Yes. Next, genotypic ratio क्या होता है? 1:2:1, where this 1 is homozygous dominant in F2 generation. These two are the hybrid, that is heterozygous, like capital T, small t. सही है? And this last one is basically homozygous recessive. So this is something like this. Suppose if we crossed pure tall plant with pure short plant, सही है? And then obtain the F2 generation. तो हमें 3 genotypes मिलेंगे F2 generation में. capital T ऐसा एक plant होगा. capital T, small t ऐसे 2 plants हैं. And small t ऐसा एक plant है. सही है, राइट? नेक्स्ट, आपने डाइहाइब्रिड क्रॉस पढ़ा है. डाइहाइब्रिड क्रॉस. ओके, सो हियर मेनली रिमेंबर द phenotypic ratio. ओके, genotypic ratio is not in the scope of your syllabus. phenotypic ratio आपको पता होना चाहिए, that is 9:3:3:1. सही है? हमने क्लास में भी आपने पढ़ा हुआ है ऑलरेडी, राइट? यू मेक द डाइहाइब्रिड क्रॉस. सही है? F2 जनरेशन में आपको फिनोटिपिकली 4 टाइप के प्लांट मिलते हैं, जिसमें से 9 प्लांट्स आउट ऑफ 16 प्लांट्स, 9 plants show both dominant characters, right? Then there are 3 plants which show one dominant and one recessive. Then there are 3 plants जिसमें first character recessive है, second dominant है, और एक प्लांट ऐसे होता है आउट ऑफ द 16 प्लांट्स जिसमें दोनों रिसेसिव कैरेक्टर्स एक्सप्रेस होते हैं. यस, एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. 9:3:3:1. ओके, नाउ देखो आपको टेक्स्ट बुक में भी एक क्वेश्चन दिया है और जो आपने क्वेश्चन पेपर्स भी इतने सारे सॉल्व किए, उसमें देखो आपको एक क्वेश्चन कॉमनली पूछा जाता है, हाउ मेंडल एक्सप्लेन दैट ट्रेट्स आर इनहेरिटेड इंडिपेंडेंटली. सही है? Always remember, अगर आपको इसका जवाब लिखना है, how traits are inherited independently, then make sure you explain the dihybrid cross. Independent assortment मतलब जब 2 अलग-अलग genes separately असॉर्ट होते हैं ड्यूरिंग गैमेट फॉर्मेशन. सही है, राइट. दे बेसिकली सेपरेट इंडिपेंडेंटली ऑफ ईच अदर. लाइक gene responsible for plant height and gene responsible for the seed color, they will always inherit or transfer independently. सही है, राइट. सो यहाँ पे हम दो जीन्स की बात कर रहे हैं, दो कैरेक्टर्स की बात कर रहे हैं, तो ऑब्वियसली आपको कौन सा क्रॉस एक्सप्लेन करना है? डाई हाइब्रिड क्रॉस. क्लियर. अगर क्वेश्चन पूछा है हाउ ट्रेट्स आर इनहेरिटेड इंडिपेंडेंटली, मेक श्योर यू एक्सप्लेन डाई हाइब्रिड एंड नॉट मोनोहाइब्रिड. ये कॉमन मिस्टेक होती है. ओके, डाई हाइब्रिड क्रॉस एक्सप्लेन करना है इफ यू आर एक्सप्लेनिंग द इंडिपेंडेंट असॉर्टमेंट. ओके, अगर आपको डोमिनेंस के बारे में पूछा है, लॉ ऑफ डोमिनेंस, लॉ ऑफ सेग्रीगेशन, यू कैन एक्सप्लेन यूजिंग मोनोहाइब्रिड क्रॉस. लेकिन अगर आपको इंडिपेंडेंट असॉर्टमेंट के बारे में पूछा है, use the dihybrid cross and make sure you mention that new recombinants are obtained. सही है, right? New recombinants are obtained in the F2 generation. This shows that there is independent assortment. सही है, right? Okay, so make this process properly. Remember the ratios. Okay, yes. So I'll ask you one simple question. Okay, try to solve this. Suppose if we take a hybrid tall pea plant and cross it with a short pea plant. Okay, we take a heterozygous, that means hybrid tall pea plant and cross it with short pea plant. सही है. Tell me what percent of the plants will be tall in next generation? What percent of the plants will be tall in next generation? इसका next generation. इसका क्रॉस बनाओ, ये पेरेंट्स है, इनके ऑफस्प्रिंग फाइंड करो और बताओ कितना परसेंट होगा टॉल प्लांट का. ओके, ना ये हाइब्रिड टॉल है ना, हाइब्रिड टॉल मतलब कैपिटल टी स्मॉल टी. सही है. शॉर्ट प्लांट का जीनोटाइप क्या होगा? स्मॉल टी स्मॉल टी. सही है. नाउ इन दिस हाइब्रिड प्लांट टू टाइप्स ऑफ गैमेट्स विल फॉर्म, कैपिटल टी एंड स्मॉल टी. ये दोनों सेपरेट हो जाएंगे ना, सो यू हैव टू टाइप्स ऑफ गैमेट्स. इन केस ऑफ शॉर्ट प्लांट ये तो होमोजाइगस कंडीशन है, आप इन दोनों को सेपरेट करोगे, दोनों तरफ से आपको सेम ही मिल रहा है, दैट इज स्मॉल टी. सो यहाँ पे एक ही टाइप का गैमेट बनेगा. सही है. अब ये दोनों गैमेट्स फ्यूज हो सकते हैं या ये दोनों फ्यूज हो सकते हैं. सही है. तो यहाँ पे क्या बन रहा है? कैपिटल टी स्मॉल टी, और दूसरा क्या बन रहा है? स्मॉल टी स्मॉल टी. सही है. सो कैपिटल टी स्मॉल टी मतलब ये प्लांट कैसे होगा? टॉल होगा, टॉल हाइट. सही है. और स्मॉल टी मतलब ये क्या होगा? शॉर्ट होगा. सही है, राइट. सो हियर यू कैन सी 50% प्लांट्स आर tall and the remaining 50% will be short. सही है, क्योंकि इस क्रॉस में हमने क्या किया? एक हाइब्रिड टॉल प्लांट को शॉर्ट प्लांट के साथ क्रॉस किया है. ओके, सो इन द नेक्स्ट जनरेशन how are the offsprings, how are the progenies? 50% are tall and all these are hybrid tall only, right? And the remaining 50% plants are short plants. Okay, तो ऐसे भी क्वेश्चंस आपको आ सकते हैं. Make sure you read the question properly, especially in heredity chapter. Okay, and then solve. ओके, क्वेश्चन अगर सही से रीड नहीं किया तो आंसर गलत ही आएगा. सही है. क्वेश्चन सही से रीड करो. जीनोटाइप अगर दिया है तो देखो प्रॉपरली क्या दिया है, जीनोटाइप, फिनोटाइप, राइट? व्हाट डेटा इज गिवन इन द क्वेश्चन एंड देन फाइंड द आंसर. ओके, और अगर परसेंट पूछा है तो आपके आंसर में परसेंट होना चाहिए एंड नॉट एनी रेशियो एंड ऑल, राइट? रेशियो पूछा है तो रेशियो लिखो, परसेंट पूछा है तो परसेंटेज में लिखो. सो योर 50% प्लांट्स आर टॉल. Very good. Okay, so make sure you practice all the crosses properly. Okay, next is basically next important point is sex determination. सही है. देखो evolution part तो deleted ही है. सही है. So sex determination in human beings ये बहुत ही important है, right? So in case of humans, in our normal body cells, right, diploid cells, we have total of 23 pairs of chromosomes, that is 46 chromosomes. 22 pairs are autosomes and the last pair is sex chromosome, right? In females, How is the pairing? How are the sex chromosomes basically? XX. Females में XX और autosomes भी है, ठीक है? Here we are simply representing the sex chromosomes. And in males we have XY, right? Yes. So when the gametes are produced, female में एक ही type का gamete बनेगा, right? Egg will always contain the 22 autosomes and one X chromosome. And in the male gametes, right? In male gametes, here two types will be present. 50% of the sperm cells will have 22 autosomes and the X chromosome, and the remaining 50% will have 22 autosomes and the Y chromosome, right? Yes. So यहाँ पे कितनी probability है? 50% chance है, सही है? देखो यहाँ पे एक ही type का gamete बनेगा, containing X, the female gamete. यहाँ पे दो type के gamete बनेंगे, X, Y. अगर ये दोनों fuse हो गए, okay? Yes. Now how to write it properly? When the egg cell fuses with the sperm cell carrying X chromosome, then the offspring is female because XX हो जाएगा, सही है? And when the egg cell fuses with the male gamete containing Y chromosome, then the offspring, the baby will be a boy, right? Male child. So there is equal probability that the child born can be a girl or a boy. सही है? 50-50% equal chance है, सही है? So sex ratio will be here 1:1, right? Ideal sex ratio should be 1:1. But due to problems like female feticide, yes or no, the sex ratio is disturbed. Okay, but technically आपको ये 50% कैसे आता है पता होना चाहिए, right? Yes, and often a woman is basically blamed, okay, if a female child is born, right? Yes, but now we know the science. Yes or no? It is the male gamete. Okay, whether the male gamete is containing X chromosome or Y chromosome. This decides the sex of the offspring, right? So it is not the mother and it is not even the father. No one is responsible. This is completely a chance event, right? This is completely like probability, right? There are equal chances, yes or no, of being a girl or a boy. Yes, so ये भी important topic है, right? Then how environment, right? How environmental factors like temperature also influences the sex determination, as in case of crocodile or turtle, yes or no, right? यहाँ पे क्या होता है? Temperature of the environment decides the sex of the offspring, right? And in humans, it is the genetic mechanism. Sex chromosomes will decide. If Y chromosome is present, it's a male. Okay, XY है तो male, XX है तो female, right? And apart from this sex chromosomes, always remember autosomes are also present, okay, in gametes and in the offsprings. Okay, yes. So this was about the heredity chapter. Okay, heredity chapter को भी अच्छे से prepare करो. Okay, practice the process, read the textbook carefully. Okay, now the last chapter of biology subject, okay, is our environment. A relatively very easy chapter, right? Our environment. So इस chapter में आपको क्या-क्या mainly revise करना है वो देखो. Okay, क्या-क्या revise करना है? Here revise ecosystem. Okay, what are the two main parts of ecosystem? Biotic and abiotic, right? How they interact each other and form an ecosystem, right? Next important, food chain. Okay, this basically represents the interdependence of organisms on each other, right? Yes, a linear chain which represents how one organisms obtain its nourishment, right? This is food chain. But in reality, what does exist? Food web. So in nature, what is present? Food web, which is basically a network formed by joining or connection of multiple food chains. Okay, next what you have to know is trophic level, right? Now each level in the food chain is a trophic level, right? Now you can represent all the trophic levels in case of a diagram known as ecological pyramid. Ecological pyramid. Okay, now this is very important. इस pyramid में हम अलग अलग ट्रॉफिक लेवल्स को रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं, सही है. सो एट द बेस यू विल ऑलवेज हैव द प्रोड्यूसर्स. ओके, दिस इज द फर्स्ट ट्रॉफिक लेवल, ऑलवेज एट द बेस, right? And here you will have the producers, all the plants which are able to synthesize their own food. Now the next trophic level will include mainly the herbivores, right? तो ये second trophic level है जिसमें क्या है, सारे herbivores है. Okay, next trophic level क्या होगा, carnivores. Yes or no? This is the third trophic level, and the fourth trophic level, okay, will include the apex predators, right? The topmost predators basically, right? Yes. So generally you have only 3 to 4 trophic levels or max to max 5 trophic levels. Generally इससे ज्यादा trophic levels किसी भी food chain में नहीं होते. इसका क्या कारण है, ये भी बहुत बार आता है पेपर में. Okay, that is the 10% law. We know that only 10% of energy is transferred from one trophic level to the next trophic level. 90% energy is actually used up, it is lost, right? It is used up to perform work. Only 10% converts into the biomass, into the body of organism, and this body will be eaten by the animal. Yes or no? Next trophic level, right? And this is how it obtains energy, and this is how energy is transferred from one trophic level to next. सही है. सो हमेशा फ्रॉम फर्स्ट टू सेकंड, फ्रॉम सेकंड टू थर्ड, फ्रॉम थर्ड टू फोर्थ कितना परसेंट एनर्जी जाएगा, ओनली 10%. और प्लांट्स जो एनर्जी कैप्चर करते हैं दैट इज अबाउट 1% ऑफ द टोटल एनर्जी अवेलेबल. ओके, जितनी सनलाइट अवेलेबल है उसमें से प्लांट्स कितना यूज करेंगे, 1%. लेकिन फ्रॉम वन ट्रॉफिक लेवल टू नेक्स्ट ट्रॉफिक लेवल कितनी एनर्जी ट्रांसफर होती है, ओनली 10%. रिमेंबर दिस, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. ये भी एक कॉमन क्वेश्चन है, right? Why there are only 3 to 4 trophic levels in a food chain? It is because of the 10% law. Right? At the end, at the fourth trophic level, you have so less energy कि और एक trophic level support ही नहीं हो सकता है. सही है, right? And there is unidirectional flow of the energy. ये energy ऐसे उल्टा नहीं आ सकता है वापस, right? Next important point जो यहाँ पे आपने पढ़ा है that is decomposers, right? Decomposers. Okay, so this will include mainly bacteria and fungi. So when the plants and animals die, when living organisms die, these dead organisms are degraded, they are broken down, and simpler molecules, minerals are released back to soil, right? This is done by decomposers, and this entire process is known as decomposition. Remember, major decomposers are bacteria and fungi which are present in the soil. Okay, right? So if decomposers are absent, then nutrient cycling will be disturbed. Biogeochemical cycles, right? They will be disturbed. Plants will not get the nutrients back in the soil. Yes or no, right? So plants will not grow properly, right, everyone? And the dead bodies, dead plants and animals, they will accumulate in the environment, right? This can also lead to spread of diseases, right? So decomposers are very important. And remember, decomposers do not have any place in the ecological pyramid. Okay, as organism किसी भी trophic level का हो, decomposers will act on them once they are dead, right? So we can't place decomposers in any one specific trophic level. Okay, clear everyone? Yes. Okay, also remember biological magnification, which is given in environment chapter, right? Yes. So if you talk about heavy metals or some of the chemical pesticides, right, DDT, सही है? Then as you go higher up the trophic level, we know that the concentration of the toxic chemical increases. सही है? तो फर्स्ट ट्रॉफिक लेवल में क्या होगा, कम होगा कॉन्सेंट्रेशन, पर जैसे आप हायर जाओगे, हाईएस्ट ट्रॉफिक लेवल में हमेशा क्या रहेगा, कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ज्यादा रहेगा. एंड दिस इज नथिंग बट बायोलॉजिकल मैग्निफिकेशन और बायोमैग्निफिकेशन. As the trophic level increases, there is successive increase in the concentration of the toxic chemical like harmful pesticides, right? Now humans, okay, we are generally in the second or third trophic level depending on what we eat, right? So we are also we are also prone to accumulating such chemicals in our body, right? Yes. And last, chemical reactions, okay, regarding how the ozone is formed. Okay, ये chemical reactions दोनों अच्छे से याद करो. Next, why there is a need to conserve ozone, right? Because it basically absorbs the UV light, right, which is received from the sun, and the UV light is blocked. We know that UV light is harmful, it is mutagenic, right? So if these UV radiations are blocked by the ozone, then we are protected from the harmful UV rays. That is why ozone is very important, right? Yes, chemicals like Cfce, chlorofluorocarbons, these are known to degrade the ozone layer, and that is why there was a complete ban on use and also the production of chlorofluorocarbons. Okay, but as these are non biodegradable, already जो release हुए हैं CFC in the air, they are still persistent and they degrade the ozone, right? Yes, so this topic is also very important. Okay, how ozone is produced? O2, molecular oxygen, is broken down in presence of UV light into oxygen, free oxygen atoms. These react with another O2 molecule to finally produce ozone, that is O3, right? Yes, and finally the waste management, biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste, right? Yes, so here we have quickly summarized the important topics from the biology part of your science term to examination. Okay, I hope everyone is clear with this. Okay, thoroughly read the chapters and all the best for everyone for your board exams. Okay, bye everyone.